Many people consider downsizing their home as they approach or enter retirement. As with any significant life-changing decision, there are many factors to consider before you take action. On today's podcast, we'll cover a few things to consider before you make the decision to downsize.
This is the Money Master Podcast from Brindle and Bay Wealth Management with Tori Tenhagen, Connie Davis, and certified financial planner Nick Davis.
Welcome back to the Money Master Podcast. Connie here along with Nick and Tori. And today we're going to talk about downsizing your home in retirement. This is a topic that a lot of people really consider when thinking about retirement. So, you guys, I think we all probably know someone, right, that has downsized a home at some point.
Well, and it is a very common conversation we have when we're building a plan of that's an easy lever. When we talk about levers we can pull to make a plan work, that's one a lot of people think of I could downsize.
You can say right size too. A lot of people like to say right size.
Make it right size. That's nice. Size.
As we're looking at our gadgets right now, Tori was just looking at her watch. We were just, right before this episode, we were talking about how we just got these Garmin watches and they do all this crazy stuff. And, that doesn't take up too much space if you have a nice little piece of technology there, right?
If Nick has to downsize, he can keep his watch.
No, we were talking about our stress levels because the watch tells you your stress level. So I'm just curious. We're shooting this episode. Did your stress level go up while we're now recording? Mine is a 31.
Oh, mine went down. 40.
Oh, wow.
Okay. Well, before the episode, she was a 60. So you must do better podcasting.
And mine, ignorance is bliss. I don't really want to know.
So downsizing doesn't mean you got to get rid of all your stuff. It just means you're trying to make it to where your fixed expenses don't bother you so much so that you can maybe enjoy life a lot more, because not all of us retire with $6 million, right? So,
right.
And a lot of people just don't want to maintain the home size they have.
True.
They've had kids in the house. They've got extra bedrooms. They've got lots of lawn to care for, and they just don't want to do that anymore.
Two stories.
I will tell you, yes, I feel like the biggest thing that I've learned about the right size home is steps, right? Like the next house that Nick and I decide to move into, one story for sure.
I don't like the noise upstairs.
Yeah.
People walking around up there and you hear.
I grew up in a house with 2 stories and even as a kid, knowing I didn't want, we have 2 stories, but it's just like a loft upstairs. We don't have to go up there. Well, but it's just like laundry and everything. You got to get up and down the stairs for. It's just such a pain.
What's funny about our current house is 2 of the kids are upstairs and 1 kid is downstairs. Well, guess what? Guess who we go and visit more than the other 2? The bedroom that's downstairs. We always go into her room and, hey, how are you?
I don't want the workout.
And you're yelling up the stairs with other ones to come down.
Dinner.
That's funny. Yeah.
Yes.
Well, right-sizing your home is a big topic, and there's some things to consider.
Yeah, well, let's talk about those things. So, first off, what do you do with all your stuff if you decide to downsize?
Well, Nick takes his Garmin watch.
Yes, for sure.
Just do small stuff.
But this is a real thing for people to consider, because imagine you've been in a 3,000 square foot home for 40 years. Well, maybe that's too long. I don't know, 20 years, right? 20 years. You've raised all of your children in this house. You've accumulated so much stuff, right? And there's pros and cons of moving.
I know. So I'm trying to think of the person's name. Real famous blogger. He asked himself one time, what do I need to be happy? Mm-hmm. And he really kind of brought it down to, I need a small house, a laptop, and friends, because the laptop allows him to do studying and reading, and he likes to communicate with people. And that was kind of the gist of it. I was at my neighbor's house the other day, and he said, when I retire, he pointed at his rack of 10 fishing rods. He was on the bass fishing team. He was actually president of the bass fishing team for the high school, and his son, was in all these tournaments. He goes, when I retire, pretty much all I need is those right there, So
that's a good
maybe
question
isn't as many
to
things
ask.
as you think, right?
Yeah.
But on the flip side, we know people that struggle.
That's what I was going to say. There's people
big time.
Stuff has meaning.
I know a person.
And like memories are tied to stuff.
Well, I know a person that had a TV from the 19-something. It must have been the 1960s. It had the dial on it that you still would have to get up and turn with your hand. And then if they made a remote for it, the remote would actually turn the dial itself. You saw the dial turning. And They kept that in their garage forever. And every time they moved from the next place to the next place, that TV would go. And it's like, it still works. We're like, yeah, but it's in your garage. It's like a 1960 TV. You know, you're going to build a vintage room? Are you making a museum here? Finally, one day, they did get rid of it. And they actually ended up paring down major and started an RV lifestyle. So they actually got over it pretty.
Got rid of everything.
Yes, but for years, it was very, very hard for them.
Yeah. But let's go back to your question, because that's a really great question for someone to ponder. What do I need to be happy? Like I was asking myself that question. And what I would need books. I would need a great view. And I would need enough space for when the kids want to come visit.
Yeah.
I think that's all I would need.
And there's lots of ways to accomplish that.
Yeah.
I mean, RVers can accomplish that if they're in the right area, you know, though they can't stay the night.
Hey, you say that. My parents did RV lifestyle for a while, and we were able to get both grandkids and myself in the RV for a couple nights. So you can do it.
Or you could put your RV up to a place that you have that external building, right? Yeah. But yeah, I mean, it is a great question to ask because I have a whole wood shop full of tools, you know, and a lot of fishing stuff. But those are all about experiences that I want to have with people, like especially the fishing stuff. And the need for all that extra stuff is really if we're entertaining other people or if other people are involved in our lives, just for those experiences, right?
Yeah.
So I'll tell you an idea that I've seen people do, and maybe you as a listener have heard of this, but we've had people here when they're getting ready to pare down, they will take pictures of everything they're getting rid of and scan them into a drive or something or a cloud. And stuff that really means a lot to them, if they can't give it to other family members or whatever, they just take pictures of it, maybe even videos. Yes, and then it's all stored. And I thought that was interesting because they were able to get rid of a lot of stuff.
You know, you've talked about the book you're reading, the Die with Zero. Is that what it's called?
Die with Zero, yeah.
And living now, and you know, or giving wealth to people now while you're still alive to see them enjoy it. And that's something my grandmother has done. Every time we go to her house, she's like, "Do you see something you like? Take it. Like, go take it and put that art in your house because I'm trying to get rid of some of this stuff, and you can enjoy it now." So,
and it doesn't have to be morbid. I mean, my grandfather gave me a brick of silver, you know, when he was late 50s, early 60s. And I loved that brick of silver. You know, it was 1,000 troy ounce brick of silver. And it gave him a lot of joy to be able to give that away and see that.
And see you enjoy it while he was still alive. So,
yeah.
Here's a quick break to tell you about a video I recently finished. The video is called 3 Ways to Reduce Taxes on Your Social Security Benefits. Up to 85% of your Social Security can be taxed federally. And it's really a form of double taxation because you paid tax on it every year that you contributed. So in this short video, I'm going to share 3 ways to reduce or eliminate taxes on your Social Security benefits. There's no cost to get that video. All you have to do is text us the letters SS to our office line, which is 214-988-9178, and we'll get that right to you. Again, it's text the letters SS, like Social Security, to 214-988-9178. You know, what are you going to do with all your stuff? That's definitely a loaded question. What else do we got to consider?
Another consideration is, will you have to pay capital gains tax if you decide to sell your home?
Yeah. That's a good question, because that could affect you. You know, if you want to be aware, you don't want to have surprises, and you know, it depends on what state you live in for your, you know, how exactly that'll work. But from a federal perspective, if you're married, you can realize $500,000 in gains as long as you've lived there 2 out of 5 of the last years. It was your primary residence, and same thing if you're single. It's the cap is $250,000. Now, it used to be that you would say that and people are like, oh, I'm not near that type of appreciation. But recently, because of all the wild appreciation, people, you know, there could be a lot more people that actually this becomes a real issue for. So anything over $500,000, let's say, you'd have that potential capital gains tax of 15 or 20%. So that should be something that you would consider as part of downsizing.
But then there's that consideration of, you know, maybe you bought that house in early retirement and you're like, oh, this is too big, I got to get out. But you've only been there for a couple years. You just got to consider how long you've been there and how fast you're reselling.
Yeah, that is true.
Good point. Next consideration, will downsizing and moving cost be too much.
True.
There's there's costs associated with just the practicality of getting out of a house, moving costs,
Right.
selling, realtor costs.
The realtor cost is a lot.
Pretty significant.
Yeah, it's a lot. And I mean, if you've been there a long time, maybe it's not that big of a deal to you, and you definitely need a realtor, I think. And, well, nowadays we're getting letters in the mail saying, can we buy your house? But in certain counties, you may have been able to freeze your property tax, and if you move, all of a sudden you can't. In other counties, here in Texas, it depends on where you live in the United States, because I know we have listeners from all over the place. We have clients from all over the place. Your mortgage is a big one too. I mean, the interest rates are, a lot of people aren't moving now because they've got these really good loans at 2% and 3%.
Yeah, we've had that happen lately.
Now they're
building 7%. You build a plan. You're like, would you consider downsizing? Or they talk about it, and you're like, well, you at that 2.5 interest because right now you can't get that. Yeah. Like that is.
Yeah. And what if you move to another state? Like what we'll do is we'll have somebody that's going to move to Colorado from Texas, and we'll take their financial plan and we'll literally change the state, and the software will actually tell us now how does the state tax on all of their investments and their incomes affect their plan. And then we can look and see how much extra dollars per year are you actually paying in state taxes. And that can really help to make that decision as well.
Right. It still might be beneficial, even with the costs associated.
Could be.
But you've got to see it play out.
Right.
Well, and property taxes are a big deal as well. My dad, for example, he moved from Texas to Hot Springs Village, and his property taxes are tiny compared to what they were here.
Yeah, my parents moved from Illinois to Indiana, and it just went from big to like virtually non-existent property taxes.
Yeah.
Yeah, and they're not too far from where they used to live. They're just across the state line.
Mm-hmm.
So
plenty to consider. Hopefully we've touched on a couple of those for you guys to think about. Next one, how long will you be able to stay in your new home? Does the new home fit you long term?
That's your stairs question.
Exactly, yes.
Yeah.
Can you age in home in this house?
Right. Mm-hmm. Most people age in home because they can't afford to move, especially now if you've got a good mortgage or no mortgage, and maybe the cost is too much. They age in home and they spend money putting lifts on stairs and handrails.
Making that accessible versus
right. And also if you do have to do a new mortgage, that interest is really on the front part of that mortgage. And so that's not necessarily the funnest thing in the world if you are a good way into your mortgage. So that might apply more if a person's actually upsizing, or staying the same and just moving to a new area. But if you're downsizing, one of the common mistakes people make is they think, well, I can take like $100,000 equity I have in my house or $200,000 and put it into my new plan. That's true sometimes, but not all the time, because a lot of times, people say, well, I can't find a place that I want to live that actually allows me to spend less than what I owe, what this house is worth, right? It's just that maybe I get all the nicer amenities, but I don't have 2 stories. I just paid more for the amenities. And so I have a smaller house, but it cost me about the same. So really there wasn't the extra money to put into their plan like they thought, right?
Yeah. You end up using it.
Right.
Yeah. Super, super helpful. Lastly, what other things might you be forgetting? So just some miscellaneous.
Just to that last point we were just talking about, it made me think, is downsizing going to make you happy in retirement? Like, think about the emotional
that
impact.
matters
It's not
big time.
just
if you
the
can afford
dollars.
if you can afford it, if you're happier, that's what it's all about, right? I mean, for sure. And we have seen people, they have to test the area. Like they might, Connie and I have talked about this. Why don't we go rent an Airbnb for a month in that area and see if we like living in that situation?
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Because it can be you test retirement.
Yeah.
Test that out.
If you're going to think about buying, a lot of people will buy a condo in another state. They'll have their main home, and then they'll get a condo in another place. So, why not do an Airbnb for 2 months in that place and see if you really like that, and test that area out as well.
It's one thing to vacation in a spot, but what's it like to
where's
live
the
in the
closest grocery store?
Yeah.
How does it feel here?
Right.
What's the life like?
But as far as other things we may be forgetting, besides mortgage interest rates, legacy, if you
has it been a family home, or is it something you want to pass on?
I would say the majority of people aren't so super in wanting to give their home to their children because they just want to give them the wealth. Right. However, it's not unusual for somebody to say, we want this house to stay in our family. If you've got a really nice piece of land or property, that's sometimes the case. I've been watching this show called Homestead Rescue. I love this show. And we just watched an episode where there was a homestead in Missouri. I think it was in Missouri.
I don't remember where.
Or Alabama. No, it's
Alabama.
Alabama.
Yes.
Yeah, Alabama. And it had been in their family for 200 years.
Yeah.
So their great-great-grandchildren, grandparents were there.
Yeah, how do you sell that one? How are you the
gosh.
kid that sells
Right.
that?
No, they
No
wanna
way.
keep it there, right? And they had 100 acres, and it was a homestead, so it's kind of out there. But anyway, lots of stuff to consider. Maybe one more would be, will the new place allow you to celebrate holidays the way that you want to celebrate holidays
That
with
was
family members?
one of the things you needed, right, Connie?
Yeah.
It was a place for the kids to come visit.
Well, we appreciate you guys listening today. We hope you found this helpful. As always, if you like this show, pass it on to others and leave us a 5-star review. We appreciate it.
Hey, it's Nick here. I know that many of our listeners like to read books about financial planning, and I wrote a book called A Wealth of Wisdom, and in it I share a story about my grandpa and his successful retirement. I also point out that his world, he retired in the 1990s, his world was very different from today's retiree. There are certain things that today's retiree must do to be successful in retirement. So there's no cost for the book. All you have to do is text us the word book to our office line, and I'll get that sent over to you right away. The number is 214-988-9178. Again, you'll text the word book to 214-988-9178.
Nick Davis is an investment advisor representative of Brindle & Bay Financial Advisors, a registered investment advisor. This show is for informational purposes only. Any exposure to ideas and financial vehicles discussed should not be considered financial advice or recommendation to buy or sell a financial vehicle. You should consult a qualified financial, tax, or legal professional before taking any action. This program is not endorsed by the Social Security Administration or any other government agency. Annuity guarantees rely solely on the financial strength and claims paying ability of the issuing company. Insurance licensed in Texas, number 1188639. Brindle & Bay Wealth Management is affiliated with Brindle & Bay Financial Advisors.